Rawr. Yeah, big raw. If you have been to any pet forums, rather it being here on YouTube, Facebook, Reddit, wherever, you have probably noticed that people are not really big fans of pet stores. And I do see why, but I also wanted to share my experience working at one and why I actually think that they get way more hate than they deserve. Very large disclaimer here, I do live in a small country with only 2 chain pet stores that, actually sells pets, and then maybe a few local stores here and there. But because of this, I do feel like people are more aware of how, the pets are treated in these stores. So the standard for the enclosures, I do feel like are just a bit higher than in other countries. I could be wrong. I have also never been to any of the bigger chain pet stores that are often mentioned in these forums, and I am sure you know which ones I mean. Wink. But yeah, I have never been to one of those, but I have of course seen pictures and heard people tell stories about the employees and the living condition that some of these animals live under. I'm not here to support that at all, but what I want to do is just share my experience working at a pet store, share my experience about the industry and why I actually think that it's hurtful to get put in a box of every single pet store is bad, every single employee just wants to sell you stuff, they don't care about the animals and all of this, and why it's important to maybe not talk in absolute about these things, and what pet stores can do overall to improve and live up to today's standards. So let's talk about my story. What's it like to work in a pet store as someone who is really passionate about animals? So after high school, when I was 18, I did work at a animal plant center. Danes will know what I'm talking about. For 7 months before attending vet school. I'm also just gonna say, I'm not gonna say the name of the store because I'm not sure of YouTube's rules or the rules regarding me saying names about these stores, so I'm just not gonna say it. And probably like many of you watching, I did, and I still do of course, a lot of research on not just birds but all sorts of different animals. And no matter what forum I went into, rather being rabbits, guinea pigs, reptiles, hamsters, whatnot, there would always be a post basically saying that pet store equals bad. Though it's mostly buying animals from the store that many people are against, which I do agree with, and more on why later, there are still comments like, don't listen to what the employees have to say, they don't know anything about proper pet care, or the employees just want you to spend money, they don't care about the actual animals, and whatnot, My issue here is that despite there being a lot of dumb employees, or rather dumb bosses that hire people that don't know anything about animals, there are in between these a lot of other employees that actually want the best for the animals and really want to take their time to educate new owners. I mean, it's their job, right? Regarding the money comment, I don't know how the salary system of course works in other pet stores, but I couldn't care less about how much I sold to a customer because I got paid for my time being there and not how much I sold. Let's say that someone wants a bunny, I recommend and would recommend free roaming them. They're not gonna cut the price of a rabbit cage from my salary. That makes absolutely no sense. And if you live under the belief that it is just impossible to get a job at a pet store if you actually recommend what is best for the animals rather than what sells the most, let's talk about my job interview. I literally just told them up front that I wouldn't work there if it was only about selling the largest amount of cages or whatever to a customer, but that I wanted to be there for the animal's well-being and be able to recommend whatever would be best for the animal. Because that's what I had heard, right? From all the forums that pet stores were bad, only cared about money. But I told them this and I got the job. So they even, and I'm not making this up, they canceled the rest of their interviews for that week and then went out and asked if I wanted the job. I actually don't know why I'm telling you this, but you can probably imagine how cool I felt at the moment, so please let me have it. And they said that they really liked my honesty and my energy and that they valued that way higher than selling anything, and they really wanted the good reputation and whatnot. So maybe that's just this store being humane for once. When I saw that this store in particular was hiring, I actually thought to myself that maybe instead of blaming pet stores, I should try and work at one to see what the drill is, and also just maybe be that one employee that actually gives good advice. And that is also why I said what I said on my job interview, and it really just goes to show that you don't have to prepare yourself to lie to customers to work at a pet store. More on my experience a bit later, but let's move on and talk about the animals. I want to show you some pictures of the enclosures that we had at this store so that you can maybe compare them to what you have seen from these maybe not so good stores, or maybe just some other pet stores in general, because I actually don't think that the animals here are mistreated or, you know, mishandled or kept in poor conditions in any way. Could it be better? Sure. Could also be a lot worse. And I think some of these animals actually live under better conditions than what they would in a private home. Unfortunately, right? But again, I can only talk for this pet store, and I'm actually not defending selling animals in stores in general. I think that's wrong overall. But if they're gonna do it, at least this is a better example of how the animals can be kept. So the animals were cared for, right? But when people read this information about pet stores online again and again and again and again, they get into the mindset of every single pet store is bad and every single pet store or employee treats the animals like this, which is not true. So to exemplify this sort of behavior, I wanted to share some experience or stories that I've had with customers and why I think that it is hurtful to us as employees. So first up, we do have macaws in many of the stores in this chain. A single macaw that will be in a huge aviary in the middle of the store or somewhere in the store, right? Now, people were very upset about this and would often very angrily come over and argue with us about how it's mistreating the macaw and it's never gonna be able to come out and stretch its wings or whatever. And we could rarely get a word in because they were just angry and then they stormed out. But what people don't know is that this macaw is very often out and flying around in this very big hall because it was also a plant center. So there's this very big hall and the macaw will fly around and it will be interacted with us. We will make toys for it, and it seemed happy, it didn't seem stressed or anything like that. The macaw seemed very happy, but that's not what people see. They see a macaw in a cage. This cage is bigger than what most people have at home for their macaws. Another story is with a cashier that comes and tells me that a customer has just very angrily walked out saying that the rabbits do not have any water. And I am very confused by this because we do check up on this regularly and I'm sure that I gave them water. So I go over to the rabbit pen, of course, to give them some water, and I noticed that they have not one but two full water bowls because it was a hot day and I would much more prefer them to have bowls than a water bottle, because I look in the corner and yeah, there's an empty water bottle, but they have two giant bowls filled with water. You kind of see where I'm going with this. People find something to get angry over, or they just instantly have a negative view on all of the animals that are kept in the store. It's also important to remember that employees are humans. I know, shocking, right? And maybe in the rush of things, we could have forgotten to fill up a water bowl. But then come and tell us nice and calmly. It's not on purpose. We're not these evil people that don't want to give the animals water or whatnot. Just come and tell us and we'll refill it as fast as we can. And I'll admit, I myself was very critical towards pet stores and would have maybe gotten some of these views. But now, after having worked at one as someone who really likes animals, I felt so sorry for all of my colleagues that had been there for years who were also victims of these very angry and confrontational customers. So let's talk about the customers, because yes, there are the bad ones, but there are also the good customers. So let's say that a pet store is smart and actually hires someone that really likes animals and knows something about them and can really educate customers. That is an awesome opportunity, because if you think about it, the people that go to the pet stores and buy pets are often new owners and people that haven't done research for some reason. They really should. But now you have the opportunity to educate someone the right way, on the right care, on how you should be keeping a pet. And I can't count how many customers that were surprised to hear about stuff like hamsters need at least 15 centimeters of bedding, or the concept of a free roaming rabbit, or parrot diet, or any other diet for that matter. And yes, I have sent people home from the pet store to set up their enclosure before they buy the pet. And I have also just sent them to other stores, maybe if we didn't have what I believe were the best for the animals. So I have sent people to IKEA for a Detolf hamster cage, or I have maybe sent them to another pet store because the parrot toys we had weren't good enough. So my dad just decided to cut wood outside the shed of where I'm filming. So we're just gonna wait that out. Now that he's done, I hope so, let's go and talk about the good customers, because there were also those that really appreciated your honesty and research, and they were so thankful that you can give them this advice. And then I had some very good cases where people would come back to the store, show me pictures of their giant hamster cage with loads of bedding and enrichment, and show me how well their hamster was thriving. So that's where it becomes super rewarding to work at a pet store, and where you sort of forget all of the bad customers. Because the contrast to those customers are those I mentioned before, but instead of taking the advice and actually going out and doing more research, or going out or getting these products that I mentioned, they would just start arguing or saying that I'm wrong, or you know, there have been loads of parents that want hamsters for their kids. Hamsters were the ones we sold most of, and the number of people that were like, well, I promised my daughter a hamster today and I can't just leave without one or she'll cry. And then they point at the small, stupid hamster cages that we have and say, well, it can survive in that. I had a hamster that survived in 3 years in one of those cages. And I'm just like, no. Yeah, there are contrasts, and there are good and there are bad customers. And I will say, unfortunately, that there are a lot of bad customers between the good ones. But again, it's super rewarding whenever these good ones actually come around. This is also where the information that people put out can be damaging, because I could see some people that were looking at me like I just wanted to sell them more whenever I tell them that they need this huge cage for their hamsters instead of the small plastic ones that we offered, even though I'm not making any money off it by sending them to IKEA, right? But people would think this way, and maybe it's because of the information that they hear online, that I'm there to get their money. So whenever I come out and request what is actually the right care, they just think I'm out there to scam them. If you want more stories from this pet store, just let me know. But I want to end off this customer section with just mentioning that the moral here is that if you ever go to a pet store and overhear an employee say something wrong to a customer, or you notice something about the animals that isn't right, just go and tell them. They aren't these evil people that purposely want to misinform people or purposely don't want to care for the animals. Maybe there are some of these out there, I don't know, but then don't support those businesses, because I do think that most employees are open to doing research and actually being invested in their job. That said, there are other things that just makes a pet store bad, but it is actually rarely something that the employees actually have control over. So let's just talk about them, starting off with the products that are sold. So where I worked, I was in charge of the reptiles, rodents, bunnies section, also birds. I was in charge of that section, and then you might ask yourself, if you knew these products were bad, why not just remove them? Well, I couldn't, or I wasn't allowed to, at least, because employees rarely have control over what products needs to be in the store. But what we can control is where to put the products and how to organize them. It was also still a chain pet store, so despite us employees maybe wanting to sell a product in the store, it needed to go through the headquarters or HQ, and then they decided what products we were able to order and have in the store. The products were sorted into two categories. It could either be an A product, meaning that they needed to be in the store at all times. We always needed to have this product on the shelves. Then there were the B products, which were products that we could go in and find a list of, and then we could order it to our store. So here we could sort of find some products that we maybe wanted that other stores didn't have. And spoiler alert, all of the bad products that did sell, such as the all-seed diet for birds, the bad hamster cages, the bad bunny cages, were all A products. So we needed to have them in the store. That is also why it was very weird for me to sit there and say that, well, I don't recommend hamster cages, and then they can look up and look at the exact hamster cage that I'm not recommending and ask why it is in the store then. And it's not like the products in the B product list were anything spectacular, so the most use I got out of that was actually being able to remove products. The ones administering which product we had in the store and which products were A or B products were the ones at HQ. And this is where the problem lies, because they're not hired because of their love or knowledge for animals. They're hired because they know how to make money. This just makes it suck extra hard to be an employee at the store, because it's us that are taking all of the angry and confrontational customers that don't like the products that we're selling, or are angry because we can't provide the products that we recommend. This goes into the second problem, which is that they are not willing to change a whole lot, because business is business, right? And they're making money. And trust me, I did what I could. I sent long ass emails coming up with products and saying which products were bad for the different animals, the sources behind it. I even took the time to find alternative products from the same companies we were working with, so that should make it no problem to get these products, because, you know, they were from our suppliers that we already had. But all I would receive was an email saying, oh, we're very busy right now with Christmas coming up and New Year's, so please can you return in 2022? So, okay, I wrote an email in late February again, so I gave them loads of time. Then I get an email saying, well, the toy is too expensive. And I'm like, the toy? Okay, so what about all of the other toys I sent? What about the food that I sent or the enrichment that I sent? They didn't care at all. And that's not even all I tried. I also tried to go around HQ and just make some changes in our store that I feel like would benefit the company. And so I made these flyers in my free time. I made these flyers about hamster care, because again, we sold a lot of hamsters, and those were often the people that were most undereducated. Because they were sold as kids' pets. And if you don't know, hamsters are horrible kids' pets. But I made the whole thing 6 pages long. I even made it fit the aesthetic and put in the logo. They didn't have to do anything other than print it. So I show up to work super proud of what I've just made, and I go to my boss and I show her the thing, and all she says is, wow, yeah, that's great. And nothing more. Then she goes off, and I'm just left there again with a, okay, could you help me get this to work, or do something with it, or anything like that? Do you want me to make more? Whatever. My rant is over. So let's talk about problem number 3, which is the animal ethics, or the ethics of selling animals in these stores. So I feel like most people have a problem with how the animals are kept in the store. However, the biggest problem, in my opinion, is how we get the animals. I'll say it, most of the animals we got shipped were from mills, with the exception of some of the bunnies and private donations, which were just people regretting or not wanting their pet anymore and then dumping them in the store, basically. My coworkers sort of made it sound like that the places we got these animals from weren't that bad and that the conditions were okay. But whenever I saw the animals and the condition that they got shipped in or came in, I was 99% sure that they came from a pet mill. If you do not know what a pet mill is, it is a place where the animals often live in very bad conditions and in very confined spaces so that they can breed a lot of babies. And that often means that the genes aren't being considered, and also that the females often get overbred because we are talking thousands of animals in a very little space. So that is a pet mill, and that is why it is very bad to support these businesses, because you're supporting overbreeding and you're supporting bad genes and whatnot. It's a bad idea. There were a couple of scenarios that really made me think that these animals came from a bad pet mill. And one of those is that almost at every single hamster delivery, there would be a hamster dead because it had been molded to death by the other 20 hamsters that were in this one box, one container. It was really bad. Another time were when we got a couple of guinea pigs. They were so dehydrated and very thin, very bad condition. And I don't know, why would you send that if you're a good place, right? So I'm pretty sure that they came from pet mills, and that is also why you should not be buying pets from pet stores, because the majority of the time they are from pet mills and you don't want to support that. Instead, where you should buy pets are either from responsible breeders or get them from rescues. So as you can hear, many of these problems do not involve the actual employees, but the problem really lies with HQ and the people owning these businesses. But I want to really finish off with talking about what can pet stores do then to improve? How do they fix these things? If chain pet stores want respect from people and want to take a stance for animals, which I actually think would make them more money in the end, they should have the proper products, the proper employees that have the right knowledge to educate people on proper pet care, and then they should either not have animals at all in the store, or another idea could actually be teaming up with a rescue and then take in rescue animals in the proper housing in the store. The rescue thing is just an example, but I do think that there are way better alternatives than getting these animals from mills. If the HQ is not willing or do not think that it's worth it to invest in these better products, then we are just stuck in a bad circle where the customers are just undereducated people and the employees get sick from telling them what's the right pet care, while they maybe don't want to listen and they're not even able to supply the products that they do recommend. And also the people that know something about animals will just despise these pet-loving employees who have no control over what's being sold and how things are running. Now, talking about the job I had, I did actually quit earlier than planned, mostly because I had 2 hours transport time both to and from work. So that sort of just killed me. But also because I actually got tired of the customers being angry, the customers not taking advice. I got a bit angry at my coworkers from not listening to me and not wanting to receive the help that I really tried to put in to make it better for us and the animals and the customers. So all of that piles together, I quit. This video was more so just to make people aware about how a pet store actually operates, and maybe to stop people from talking in absolutes whenever they talk about pet stores or employees or whatever online, because it can be damaging to the opinion people get about every single pet store, rather than it just being the ones that you have had a bad experience with or are bad or mistreat the animals or whatever. They do need to be called out, but think about the wording and the way you do it so that you don't unintentionally hurt all of these other stores and employees. To all the good pet store employees out there, I know firsthand how demotivating it can be to day in and day out go through these bad customers and maybe have these bad experiences with your coworkers. However, I do really hope that you hang in there for those good moments where you do actually help someone, because that is one animal that you help out of poor conditions. So I'm proud of you. That was all for this one. Bye!